Hey, what's up, everybody? I hope that you are doing well, and thank you for tuning into the Creepy and Paranormal Show once again. It seems like a couple of you really enjoyed listening to my story that I am currently still in the process of writing, but I thought I don't want to leave you hanging for too long, so I'm going to continue from where we left off and yeah, make this a part two. We'll see how many parts we put out. But yeah, hope you enjoyed, and please don't forget to leave any suggestions, comments, or what's the word, criticism in the comments below. So yeah, take care and enjoy the show. What the hell have I just read? Lenny stared bemused and confused. Well, what does it say? Asked Warren. Here, have a look yourself. Someone is clearly taking the piss. While Warren was reading over it, Lenny turned around with his hands on top of his car. What shit have I come across now? Lenny, looks like you got yourself a secret admirer, smiled Warren. Shut up and give me that. Go back upstairs and wrap up the scene. I'm heading back to the precinct. Lenny jumped in the car, slammed his foot down, put the pedal down, and he was gone. Driving over to the station, he couldn't help but get a sense of uneasiness. This never made sense. How does the killer know him? Does he see him often? What's even more worrying, does he not see him and he's still being stalked? Chapter 6. Detective Lenny had always considered his office at the police station as a sanctuary, a place where he could escape the chaos of the world outside and focus on solving the puzzles that came with his job. But today, as he stepped into his dimly lit office, the weight of a particularly perplexing case settled heavily on his shoulders. The case in question was one that had been gnawing at him for weeks, a series of seemingly unrelated murders, each more gruesome than the last. The victims were ordinary people with no apparent connections to each other, and there were no witnesses, no clues, and no leads. Lenny had spent countless hours poring over files, interviewing potential witnesses, and even chasing down dead-end leads. Yet, he had no come closer to unraveling the mystery that had consumed his every waking moment. With a sigh, Lenny closed the door to his office, blocking out the sounds of the bustling police station beyond. He walked over to his desk, a worn and weathered piece of furniture that had seen better days. In one of the desk drawers, hidden beneath a stack of paperwork, was his secret stash, a bottle of whiskey and a pair of crystal glasses. Lenny poured himself a generous measure of the amber liquid and watched as it sloshed into the glass. The scent of whiskey, rich and smoky, filled the air, and he took a moment to savor it before lifting the glass to his lips. The first sip burned as it slid down his throat, but it was a welcome burn, one that helped to numb that ever-present ache of frustration and despair. As he sat down in his creaky leather chair, Lenny couldn't help but reflect on his career. He had been a detective for over 2 decades, and he had seen his fair share of gruesome crimes and unsolved mysteries. But this case was different. It was as if the killer was always one step ahead, leaving behind a trail of mangled bodies and shattered lives with no rhyme nor reason. Lenny swallowed the whiskey in his glass, his thoughts drifting back to the crime scene photos he had reviewed earlier that day. The images were haunting, the stuff of nightmares. Each victim had been brutally mutilated, their bodies posed in grotesque tableaus that seemed to defy explanation. It was as if the killer was playing a sick and twisted game, taunting Lenny and the rest of the police force. He took another sip of whiskey, the warmth spreading through his body, dulling the edge of his anxiety. The silence of his office was a welcoming respite from the chaos of the outside world, but it also allowed his mind to wander into dark and dangerous territories. He had been warned by his colleagues to stay away from this case, that it was too much for one detective to handle, but Lenny was stubborn, and he couldn't let it go. As he stared at the half-empty glass in his hand, Lenny's thoughts turned to the one lead he had yet to explore, the cryptic notes that had been left at the crime scene. The killer seemed to revel in leaving behind twisted messages, taunting the police with their cryptic clues and riddles. Lenny had a hunch that if he could decipher the meaning behind these notes, he might finally be able to track down the elusive killer. With newfound determination, Lenny finished his whiskey in a single gulp and placed the empty glass back on his desk. He knew that he couldn't solve this case on his own, that he needed the help of his colleagues and the resources of the entire police department. But he also knew that he couldn't let it consume him, couldn't let it drive him to the brink of madness. As he locked the whiskey back in his desk drawer, Lenny made a silent promise to himself. He would find a way to crack this case, to bring the killer to justice, no matter how long it took or how many sleepless nights it might cost him. But for now, he had to put it aside, to focus on the here and the now, and to still himself from the battles that lay ahead. The shadows in the dark would have to wait just a little while longer. Chapter 7. Detective Lenny had always been a man of few words, but tonight, as he drove home through the dimly lit streets of the city, silence weighed heavy on his mind. His unshaven face bore the marks of a long and exhausting day at work, the fatigue in his eyes mirroring the heavy burden of an unsolved case that had taunted him. The night air was cool, and the soft hum of the car's engine was the only companion Lenny had as he navigated through the labyrinth of city streets. He glanced at the digital clock on the dashboard, its red digits glaring back at him. 2:30 a.m. The case had consumed his every waking moment, leaving little time for rest or relaxation. He needed an escape, and only if it was for a few hours. And that is where I'm going to leave it for today, folks. I hope you are still enjoying it. Like I say, if you want to continue to hear the rest of the story in a couple of parts, let me know. Maybe the next episode I will just go into it much longer and cover a good couple of chapters for you. But yeah, please don't forget to share some love with me, or even some hate for that matter if you don't enjoy it, so I know what appeases you and how I can create content that you would enjoy. Anyways, you know the routine. When you go to bed tonight and you hear something creaking in your cupboard and it's really, really dark and you think you know what it is, don't forget to look under your bed.